I'm situated on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Attawandarong, Haudenosaunee, Mississaugas, and Mississaugas of the First Credit. And this region is currently known as Burlington, Ontario. And we're having a very, very damp day today, which hopefully means we're gearing up for a beautiful spring. So I'd encourage everyone to share where you're calling in from in the chat if you'd like. And you can use nativeland.ca if you're not familiar with the traditional territories on which you're situated. So since we're talking about elections today, I thought I'd look a little into Indigenous political representation in Canada. And in terms of the most recent information I could find, there have been 49 self-identified Indigenous MPs and 25 self-identified Indigenous members of the Senate to date. And this doesn't include political participation within Indigenous communities. So, for example, through First Nation councils. So, of course, these numbers would be much higher if we included Indigenous governance models. And I also thought I'd share this quote from a recent paper by Rial Carrier and Royce Coop. They interviewed Indigenous elected officials in Canada, asking them how they feel about their role. And I think one of the participants made a really powerful statement saying, as you walk into Canadian representative institutions, there's potential to make a difference, but also a sadness at what that place did to our people. So you almost have a stronger obligation to right the wrongs of the past, to move forward in a different way, in a better way, in a stronger way that's inclusive of Indigenous peoples. So thank you for being attentive through the land acknowledgement. In terms of what we'll be going over today, we'll start with some stage setting about reproductive rights in Canada, what the parties have done for reproductive rights, and then we'll get right into our toolkit presenting on our voting guide, our election toolkit, and the social media kit. So I'm going to introduce our first speaker who's going to take us through a bit of the stage setting. So Anisah Ali is a member of ARC and serves on the Election Toolkit Committee and the Crisis Pregnancy Center Committee. And she'll be leading our discussion on ARC's positionality and political leadership perspectives on reproductive justice. So I'll turn it over to you, Anisah.
Hello, everyone. As Roma mentioned, I'll be assisting with some of the stage setting. So we'll begin with defining what reproductive justice is. Reproductive justice is a term coined by Black feminists in the 1990s that goes beyond the pro-choice framework and combines reproductive rights and social justice to address structural inequities. By adopting this approach, it ensures a more inclusive approach and highlights the intersections between Indigenous, BIPOC, 2S LGBTQIA+ peoples, people with disabilities, people in poverty, and the many connections and differences that each community faces to access reproductive health care and reproductive freedom. And with that, to preface, we've come far in terms of our access to abortion and reproductive justice. While there is a ways to go, abortion care is integrated into much of our healthcare system to much of a greater extent in comparison to most other countries. Abortion clinics now offer a wide range of reproductive health services, sometimes even birthing care. For example, Winnipeg Women's Health Center. Advent of telemedicine and abortion pills by mail are now available to help folks in remote areas. There are also reproductive health funds that assist with training and documentation and support for abortion helplines, as well as funding that includes safe abortion. This extends to also zero legal restrictions on abortion in Canada, namely in terms of limited funding to abortions done in hospitals, as well as high public support for abortion rights and access. We also have access via technology such as web portals, via the Health Canada website, as well as proposed amendments to income tax acts requiring crisis pregnancy health centers, which we will discuss more in length later, requiring these services to be disclosed and to not be provided, um, as well as anti-choice groups ineligible for Canada Summer Jobs funding. And despite this high public support since 2000, 21 bills have been proposed that aim to restrict abortion access or at risk of restricting access. 19 of these bills were introduced to Parliament by Conservative members of Parliament, and the most recent being in 2023. So, as many of us are aware, Pierre Poilievre is the leader of the Conservative Party. Under his conservative leadership, we are met with escalated threats to abortion rights and reproductive justice. So, Poilievre aims to pass private member bills, which predictably will come with ease in a majority conservative government. Some of the potential candidates' bills include establishing a fetus as a victim of crime, criminalizing sex selection abortion, conscious protections for healthcare professionals, which means criminalizing employers who require healthcare professionals to provide care they disagree with, and giving broad immunity to belief-based care deniers with no recourse for patients, as well as mandating care for fetuses allegedly born alive after an abortion. There are some bills that also relate to the criminal code, including the passing gestational limits on abortion, redefining human being to include zygotes, criminalizing abortion for genetic reasons, as well as prohibiting research using embryos. Each of these bills poses a direct harm to reproductive justice and abortion access. This also extends to further legal and political threats. So, for example, no enforcement of the Canada Health Act, in which abortion access is regulated by. There's also this negligence to abortion access, currently as in a do-nothing approach, which leads to this erosion of access and ignoring any issues that come up. There's also increased lobbying by anti-choice movement to influence governments and establish anti-choice policies, which extends to also anti-trans policies. There will also be a cancellation of childcare agreements signed with provinces, which is set to expire next year in March 2026. Moreover, as we know, there is this privatization to healthcare, which threatens a wide spectrum of care, including reproductive healthcare. This itself influences menstruation, menopause, contraception, gender-affirming care, etc. And sorry, my bad. Can we go back to the slide? Thank you very much, Roma. This also extends to various funding threats, the preservation of charity tax status for anti-choice groups, which is already promised by Poilievre. There's this promotion of adoption over abortion, which implies that crisis pregnancy centers may be receiving substantial funding, and the restoration of Canada's summer jobs funding to these anti-choice groups. This further extends to the abandonment of the program for universal pharmacare for contraception, such as ending efforts to reach bilateral agreements with provinces and cutting extra funding to the provinces. And speaking of provinces, some of the provincial threats that conservative federal leadership will have to reproductive health includes cuts from the health transfer fund to provinces, which, given that reproductive health is deprioritized with conservative leadership, this would result in less care and possible downstream cuts to abortion clinic funding in some provinces. Moreover, also the conservative provinces may feel inclined to pass restrictive policies and regulations or let access erode, namely Alberta and Saskatchewan. And potential examples of these bills include parental consent for laws for abortion, as mentioned prior, conscious protections for health professionals, attacks on comprehensive sexual education in schools, which we've seen already, and protection for offensive anti-choice speech and images. These are just some of the issues and threats posed by the Conservative government as of 2025.
Thanks so much, Anisah, for going over all of that. Next, it's my pleasure to introduce Carolyn Kavanaugh. Carolyn is a member of ARC and also serves on the Election Toolkit Committee as well as the Reproductive Justice Committee. She's played an amazing leadership role in building the voting guide, so I'm excited to have her talk us through what the different parties have done for reproductive rights and then take us through the voting guide and how it works. Carolyn?
Thank you, Roma. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So just to continue on with some context, we did want to chat about some of the positives that each party has done, and just kind of split it up and just give a view of, yeah, where we're at with that. So I think I'll start off with the Liberals. So start off with the Liberals, and some of the positives are frequent public statements by former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in favor of gender equality, reproductive rights, and abortion rights. Additionally, they began Sexual and Reproductive Health Fund in 2022 and expanded it in 2024. So this provided 81 million in funding for Canadian community organizations, including training for doctors and supports for abortion helplines. Some additional positives were the federal pharmacare program for contraception, as well as other medications in 2024, the end of the Canada Summer Jobs funding for anti-choice groups in 2018, as well as the creation of a web portal for abortion at Health Canada in 2024. So this portal helps Canadians receive accurate information and something advocates worked really hard for. As of 2013, the party under Justin Trudeau required all caucus members to vote against all anti-choice bills or motions. And so this also helped the party maintain a pro-choice stance. And so next, we're just going to chat about the New Democratic Party. So the New Democratic Party has pledged to enforce the Canada Health Act to ensure that provinces do not impose barriers to accessing abortion services. Their commitment includes working on improving access in rural, remote, and northern communities where services are often limited. And this party emphasizes that abortion must be universally accessible. They also have a strong opposition to anti-choice organizations and have taken a firm stance against organizations that disseminate misleading information. A cornerstone of the NDP's platform is the implementation of Universal Pharmacare Program, which has many benefits for reproductive health. And their consistent pro-choice stance. So the NDP has been consistent in their advocacy for reproductive rights, including the broader framework for reproductive justice. The MPs have always voted against anti-choice private member bills and motions, and they frequently participate in the debates to oppose them, really maintaining this stance. And so next I'll talk about the Bloc Québécois. So some of the positives we've seen from Bloc Québécois are their legislative advocacy, and consistent pro-choice stance. Their platform emphasizes the importance of comprehensive reproductive rights, and their MPs have always voted against anti-choice private member bills and motions. So the next is the Green Party. They are an advocate for comprehensive pharmacare. So as mentioned previous, that is a positive for reproductive rights. And they have a firm pro-choice policy. However, there are some concerns on how this policy could be implemented as the party does not whip votes. So there may still be some free votes. And then lastly is the Conservative Party. So the Conservative Party does have a declaration in their policy book in 2021 that states the party will not support any legislation to regulate abortion while in government. However, the whole party voted in favor of Bill C-311, which was deemed anti-choice in June 2023. So we don't have a lot written here on positives for reproductive justice, which is why we're all meeting here and wanting to chat about the next election. So thank you for going through that with me. I am going to now just introduce, yes, the election toolkit, and I'll talk about the voting guide first. Roma, would you like to introduce this section?
Yeah, so we just have a couple of QR codes up here if you want to access the voter guide and the election toolkit on your devices. I'll also pop these links in the chat, but I'll leave it to Carolyn to now share her screen and take us through it a little bit more interactively.
Let me just get my screen share up here. Go. Did it work? Can anyone see it? Okay, lovely. So here is our voting guide. This is a big part of our election toolkit. So the voting guide is going to take you through all of the candidates throughout Canada, and let you know if you should support them because they have a pro-choice stance, or oppose them because the candidate is deemed anti-choice or a party that has a history of anti-choice actions. So this is the first part of the voting guide. There's a legend, and we have the Conservative Party, the Liberal Party, the NDP Party, Green Party, and the Bloc Québécois Party. As you see at the bottom here, we have all the provinces and territories listed. So as you use the sheet, you can just click on your province or territory and look and find your riding, and then you will see your candidates listed there. So I can do an example. But we also just wanted to highlight that as voters know their ridings best, we welcome more information on candidates and polling changes. So we do have some other tools to help you contact candidates, as well as maybe if a candidate has been changed or things like that. We really want people to be involved. So if you see a change or something maybe inconsistent with your riding, we would love to know. So here is British Columbia's for the voter guide. I am going to use this Kamloops as an example. So let's say that my riding is Kamloops. Let me see here, just past it. There we go. Kamloops, Thompson, Nicola. I can see the people who are running in my area. So the first one is Frank Caputo, which is a Conservative candidate, then a Liberal candidate, NDP candidate, and a Green candidate. Then we have their stance listed next. And we also have the previous voting history on bills that were deemed anti-choice. So we have one from October 2016, one from June 2021, and one from June 2023. So for this one, an example, as you can see, Frank Caputo, they were a member of parliament previous, and they voted yes in favor of this bill, and we have written them as anti-choice. And so then when you look at if you should oppose or support, we have to oppose, and we have other candidates for you to support. In other areas, there may be also people who, in other areas, in other ridings, you might see something in the strategic voting section. So these are for people who wish to vote strategically. We'll just have some information on what if a party is leaning or if it's a toss-up. And so then you can decide which candidate you'd like to vote for as for one of the progressive candidates. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I just want to line up about here. I just have a few, other examples here. And then again, for those who are unknown, because of the history of the Conservative government, we are still going to have oppose and keep that there. And then for whoever is elected in Parliament next, we'll be keeping track of their votes. So if there's any questions for this, I can stop sharing and we can chat about it, or should I keep sharing?
Maybe you can keep sharing. If there are any like clarification questions, please pop them in the chat or maybe raise your hand if you'd like to unmute and speak. Yeah, this is great.
So
I
we
just
are
want to
still
mention that.
working.
Oh, sorry.
No,
Sorry.
you can go, Jill. Sorry.
Yeah, some of you probably have seen, we don't actually have the voting guide up on that website yet, but we will have it fairly soon. It's coming along quite well. We're still filling in data, and many of the candidates are still not even in place yet. The deadline is April 7th. And I want to mention as well that, ARC designates all Conservative candidates as anti-choice. Some of them are, in fact, personally pro-choice, but, they've still voted in favor of that motion last year or the year before. So I think we're going to have some of that nuance in the toolkit as well, so you can see, but we'd still recommend that you even vote against, don't vote for the so-called pro-choice candidates. There's even a small handful of Liberal candidates who are personally anti-choice, so maybe I wouldn't recommend you vote for them, but they don't vote in favor of the anti-choice bills, at least. So just issues like that. So it's not always just cut and dried in terms of we just assume, that the Liberals are all pro-choice or not necessarily. And it's a bit of a wild card with Mark Carney as well in terms of how he's going to treat the issue coming in. So great. Any other questions?
I had a question, Carolyn. If you scroll down, some of the candidates have like a asterisk beside their name. Does that mean anything specific, or did I
Yeah,
miss it?
so those who have an asterisk beside their name, that means they were the previous MP for that riding or were previously elected. So we just have the asterisks to kind of keep track. And then it's also, you can see too that they were in office because of the votes. So,
Makes sense. Thank you.
yeah, of course. Yeah, and then we do also have, I guess, a guide that will also kind of outline how to use our voting guide that'll be available shortly on the website. So that will also be helpful as well as this recording. So.
Okay. Thanks so much, Carolyn. So if there are no pressing questions, I will invite Joyce to speak next. Needs no introduction, but Joyce is ARC's executive director, and leads the Election Toolkit Committee. She'll introduce and show the various tools in the toolkit, including the online petition, solidarity statement, question for candidates, letter tools, and free stuff like posters and stickers, which is always really fun. So over to you, Joyce.
Thanks a lot, Roma. And thanks for coming, everyone. So I'll share my screen. I'm going to show, here we go. I'm going to show the our toolkit page on our web page, which hopefully you've all had a quick look at. And so we have quite a few tools on there, and I'm just going to run through a few of them just to show you how they work. So we've gone through the voting guide, and here you are at a workshop. And these are information pieces. This one's still coming, details on the most hardline anti-choice conservative MPs. So we've picked about 8 or 10 of them to look at in more detail. And we are actually gathering evidence on other conservative candidates as well. So we'll have that evidence in our back pocket if needed. So let's start with the letter tool. I'm going to click on it here. I'll bring it to you. So this is also a work in progress because as I said, we don't even know all the candidates yet, but I've set up a couple of all the conservative candidates are entered in the letter tool, and we're now starting to enter some of the liberals as well. So I'll show you a couple of examples. So how it works is you select your province. So let's go to British Columbia, and we can select my riding, which is Vancouver Quadra. Then you can select your candidate, and there's a liberal and conservative candidate in there. So we'll check on the conservative candidate. And then this all pops up. So we've got the contact information. Most of them don't have email addresses, by the way. So that's a bit of a drawback, but they're just not there yet. And we also can't use the parliamentary email addresses for the incumbents. That's not really allowed during the election. Like they're not allowed to use them. But we do have the social media pages where you can contact them. Here's the letter, which you're free to change. You can just add whatever stuff you want there. You can copy the letter and then go to one of these sites and hopefully send them a message or check back later. We're going to try and add more information as we get it on email addresses, etc. I'll show you another one. Alberta and Peace River. This is the infamous riding where Arnold Viersen is the leading candidate, the incumbent. He's a really radical anti-choicer. He's one of the guys that we'll be looking at. And so it loads his social media information. It's basically the same letter to all the candidates. And you do have to add your name and stuff at the bottom. As I said, you can change it in any way that you want. So we'll just keep working on that tool. And for now, at least, you can email the conservative candidates. And we'll get the other ones added as soon as we can. And now showing you the questions for candidates. So this is meant to be it's a 2-pager, and it's meant to, you can just like print it out and bring it to your all candidates meeting or have it on your phone or whatever. And it's sample questions that you could ask. These are questions for all candidates about how they're going to enforce the Canada Health Act, expand access to medication abortion. Then we have specific questions for the Conservative candidates, as well as the leader, Pierre Poilievre, about their record on private members' bills, what's going to happen there. And you know how they always say, oh, we're not going to legislate on abortion. Well, that's not enough. So, if elected, how are you going to actually work with the provinces to improve access so Canadians will promptly access abortion care? So we want some like pro-action from the Conservative candidates. That's what we want to hear. And then questions for social media. So these questions, you can ask them if they come to your door, not knock on your door. You can ask them then, or at all candidates meetings, or on social media, or send them an email or whatever, in any way possible. And so these are short questions, examples that you can put on social media. And these are meant to be suggestions. There might be other ones. One thing, for example, that happened recently that we kind of missed is, how Carney didn't appoint a minister of women's and gender equality, right? And so we think that's really terrible. And every party should have a policy, hopefully going in, that they will have a separate ministry. And so that's our questions to candidates. I'm going to go now to the next piece, which is solidarity statement of support. This is just something that you can sign. So when you click on it, it goes to the letter. It's a Google Doc, and you can read the letter. And then if you like it, you just click next to go to the thing, and you can sign as either a group or an individual, right? And then you just enter your name and province, and that's basically it. So it's a very, very simple tool. And I think I didn't look this morning, but we have about, I think, 50 or 60 signatures so far. Hopefully we can get more. We did a similar toolkit back in 2019, and we had a similar kind of solidarity letter, and we got 1,000 signatures. So please go out there and get that letter signed. Next is the petition. So this is an online petition at Change.org. It's a bit more flexible than, we can't really do an e-petition with Parliament there because of the election period. So we did it online here. And here we've got, almost 100 signatures. And it's bilingual, just all in one piece. And here I just sort of snuck this in the last few days. Create a separate ministry for gender, women, and gender equality. So because it was easy to update, and it's all in French at the bottom. You can share it with a QR code as well. So again, very easy to sign. Please sign it if you haven't yet, and you can also share it with all your friends. And the free stickers, buttons, posters, and cards. Okay, I've been very busy with this because I'm getting everything printed and done here in Vancouver. So I'm the one that's mailing stuff out, but it's great. We've had about a dozen orders so far. So we have stickers. I'll just show you a picture of one or two of them. I'm voting for abortion rights. And we have this one, which is more like a banner style. Vote like your rights depend on it. And these symbols represent like other issues. It's not just about abortion, right? The Conservative candidates tend to be against MAID as well, maybe against LGBT rights, etc. So we want to make sure this is all part of reproductive justice that we want to protect. And of course, the Conservatives have a bad record on trans rights, right? So, and when we went into this toolkit, we sort of thought about look at these other issues, because if they're anti-MAID or even anti-vaccine or something like that, that might be a good indication of sort of right-wing propensities, and they're probably anti-choice as well. And what else? Posters. These you can print out yourself, or we can ship them to you. We have them on nice kind of glossy, heavier paper. Here's another example. All with our wonderful graphics done by Margret. Thanks, Margret. And we just got the selection card done, also bilingual. And it's 5 by 7, double-sided. So you can order those as well and just hand them out. You can have an information table or hand them out in your neighborhood. So please go ahead and order stuff if you want. We do have I mean, there is, of course, a limit to our budget and everything too. So we're asking you to limit your orders to these numbers. And I also wanted to show you these public cards are not election related, but they're just, they're older cards that we've had for a while, but they're still available. They're a bit bigger. They're 5 by 9 with a bit of a basic Q&A on the back about abortion for the public. And oh, the buttons are, I'm picking them up on Monday. We don't actually have them in stock yet. I've got a whole bunch of orders for them, but I'll be sending them out. They're actually the same as the stickers, but they'll be on a button, a pin-on button. I'll show you another sticker for reproductive justice. And then I also just wanted to point out that everything is in French as well. So if you're bilingual, if you have Francophone friends, please pass on our French guide. It's all, I mean, the only thing that's not translated is this workshop, really. Everything else is done. And the letter and everything, it's all in French. It's all there, including all the buttons and postcards are all translated as well. So, and thanks to our volunteer, Marianne, who couldn't make it today, but she's been our translator throughout the toolkit and has done a fantastic job. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. I think I'm done. And yeah, whatever's next. Thanks, Roman.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks so much, Joyce. So last but not least, we have Margret. Already got a shout out. Margret is ARC's social media coordinator and leads the social media team. So she's the reason why our socials are so active and look really great. So she serves on our election toolkit committee and in the strategic planning committee. So she'll be taking us through the social media kit to help our supporters like you spread the word about the toolkit. Margret.
Thanks, Roma. Hi, everyone. My name is Margret. My pronouns are she, her. Like Roma said, I'm ARC social media coordinator. And I'm excited to introduce our little kit that we've put together to help folks spread the word about our election toolkit. So, and some of the great resources that we've introduced today. So we put this kit together so that our allies and supporters have some ready to share materials to help us promote the work we're doing around the election. And it includes graphics and blurbs for social media, as well as some printable posters like Joyce shared. And so this is all going to be a really important element for us, as a lot of the elements of our toolkit depend on sort of collective action and engagement and spreading awareness. So as many eyes as we can get on these materials, the better. So that's where you all hopefully come in. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, can everyone see that? All right, so yeah, so our social media kit is accessible from our webpage, like Joyce just showed us. And you're just going to navigate to the social media kit in the table of contents here. And the link will take you to a live view only Google Doc, where you can find all the materials that you need to share to social media in both English and French. So it's going to take you to this doc here. You don't need a Google account to be signed in to access these things, I think. So you should be good, but please let me know if you're having trouble. And yeah, so we just have like a little blurb about the toolkit and this resource, and then we get into the shareable content that we've prepared for you with corresponding captions and graphics for you to copy and paste and share as you please. There's longer captions as well as some shorter captions to account for character limits on different platforms, so depending on where you want to share these things. And then we have some suggested hashtags as well for you to use. So yeah, some of the content that we have included here is some promotional things just to share about the toolkit and how folks can get involved. These are all linked to a Google folder. We can go through that in a little bit, but yeah, and then there's like a blurb for Blue Sky, Mastodon, Twitter. And then we have some more like informative content and resources linked to this document that we put together about threats to abortion rights under conservative government that we talked about earlier, and a blurb for those as well. And then we have some other content to promote our petition and our solidarity statement that Joyce just mentioned. And yeah, so for each post, there's the link to the Google folder that you can go and download the graphics in both English and French. And then we have some other things here to promote content that is coming soon, like the voting guide and the letter tool that we just saw. And these should be updated like as they're finished. So we'll keep uploading content to the toolkit. So feel free to check back occasionally or keep an eye on our social media where it will be posted when those come out. And yeah, so hopefully this document will make it easy for folks to share our content and also turn it into your own as well. We encourage you to take these posts and connect them to whatever issues or causes that you may be organizing around. How does abortion rights fit into your mission, and why is protecting access important to your cause? So feel free to play around with it with these resources here. And then we also have a list of our media contacts at the bottom for any media inquiries. Yeah, so that was a run through of the kit. I'll stop sharing my screen now. And just as like an additional note, I know that, we've been seeing abortion content, etc., is being increasingly censored and removed on various platforms, especially Meta. So we encourage you to, adapt these posts as you feel necessary, or if you feel necessary, and take whatever precautions you feel comfortable taking to prevent content suppression. And if you do face an issue, please let us know. And yeah, and also with this, you can really help us by engaging with the content that we do post online and making sure it reaches folks and gains traction and like rises above any potential other anti-choice content or misinformation. Yeah, and then finally, if you don't have social media or don't want to use it, that is also totally understandable. I feel like a lot of these elements you can sort of take and make them work offline or through various other digital spaces. So you can send it as an email blast to your networks, or post it on your blog, or send it to friends who do have and use social media. And yeah, like Joyce said, we also have that whole folder of printable posters that we would love to see folks print and put up in their homes or in their communities, and various other resources like the voting guide and the questions for candidate resource that you can print and share how you like. And of course, the stickers and buttons and info cards. Yeah, so that's all for me. And thank you all so much for helping us spread the word and for using your platforms to help us engage and mobilize folks for abortion rights. It's going to be really important this election, as always. So I look forward to seeing you all on my feed.
Thanks so much, Margaret. That was great. And yes, thank you all for your support on the guide, even just being here today, and then hopefully your continued support, with less than a month to get a lot of attention to this. So we'll certainly be doing a lot of work on our end, but yeah, hoping to see you guys supporting us as well. So yeah, we have quite a bit of time for questions now. So if you do have questions about anything that was presented, feel free to pop them in the chat, or we're a pretty small group, so if you wanted to raise your hand or unmute, that would be fine as well. Joyce, go ahead.
Thanks, Roma. One thing I forgot to mention that I wanted to show everyone was maybe I can just quickly share my screen again. And because on our election toolkit page at the bottom, you'll see we have election-related articles. So we've been busy actually writing a bunch of blogs, and there's more coming. As you can see, these ones are to come. They're being drafted now. Actually, this one's done. Probably will be published next week, hopefully. So please check these out. We had a couple by our board member, Sarah and Frisky, on the threats to Indigenous communities if under a conservative government, or what the current problems are. Looking at the issue internationally by Jacqueline Potvin, who I think is with us today. Hi, Jacqueline. Thanks for that article. And Sharon's also written about this. That's her second article about how a Poilievre government could undermine Indigenous rights and reproductive justice. Carolyn's just gotten an article published about how Trump's presidency and the loss of rights in the U.S. might impact Canada. And then we'll have another one by Sarah about reproductive justice is queer, looking at the LGBT community and their rights to reproductive justice, and an activism guide. And I'm going to be putting out a ARC Spark, which is our newsletter. It's the newsletter that generally just goes out to paid ARC members, but this will be a public election issue that we'll send to members. I haven't started drafting it yet, but it'll come out in the next couple of weeks. And so we might add more to that. So just keep an eye on our list of articles there. And we might be also doing a few press releases through the campaign as well. And just basically just for this month, it's all promotion, writing, press, all that kind of good stuff, and trying to promote our petition, our solidarity statement, get as many signatures as possible. So that's the kind of work that's ahead of us now. Thank you.
Carolyn, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was actually wondering if we should maybe share the guide that I made because I have it all finished, so it'll be up on the website right away, and I could do a quick little review of that. Okay, sounds good. So just one more second, and then we can dive into some conversations if people have some questions. But I'm just going to share our guide. So this guide is a PDF that will be available on our website, and probably essentially going over a little bit of what we're going over today. We'll have the English and French website access, but I just wanted to highlight a few things on it. So one of the exciting pages, so it's just taking a second to load. Let's see. Maybe with the video, it's going to be a little slower than usual. 1 second. Sorry, guys. Okay, so one of the things that we'll have will be a checklist. So you can check off that you've done everything on our guide. And I think that'll be kind of a fun one to just highlight what we have offered and available. And you can share this with friends and family. And then it will also have a bit of an instruction on how to use the voting guide that will be linked in the page and then also on our website. Hopefully in the next week or so, we'll have that live. So I just wanted to highlight that. And there'll be a few other pages to go through as well. So, yeah, thanks, guys.
Carolyn, that's great. So we do have a question in the chat. Maybe this is directed a little bit to you, Joyce, but it's just asking, is there a joint lobbying effort with other organizations to lobby Carney to return the Ministry of Women and Gender Equality? Have the Liberals communicated anything to you about it?
There are certainly groups that have been lobbying against it. I don't know if I would call it a joint effort, but I know Action Canada for Sexual Health and Rights has been active and a few other groups as well. So there's been quite a bit of, outrage and upset about it. And I think ARC has posted on our social medias about it. We haven't actually issued a full statement or anything, but it is certainly an issue we want to highlight in the election. Maybe we can add a bit more to the toolkit about that issue here and there. And yeah, I mean, people ask us like, what's Mark Carney's position? How does he compare to Trudeau? And obviously, I mean, he's pro-choice, at least he claims he is. But I don't think we're going to see the same level of enthusiasm or commitment from Carney as we did from Trudeau. And even Trudeau was, not necessarily as strong as he could have been. So we are going to have to fight for that and keep lobbying. Like if Carney wins the government, then we have to really push for that and lobby for that. And I think, having that separate ministry is really key because you really need to have an independent ministry to focus on these issues and give them the importance that they deserve. And just the fact that he, tossed that ministry aside kind of points to him not prioritizing, gender equality and rights the way that he should, which, really are essential to everything, like to the economy and so on. And I wanted to mention as well that ARC is helping to promote and cross-promote other campaigns, other allied campaigns. There's several other groups that have election campaigns or toolkits. So there's Je vote pour choix by the FQPN in Quebec. There's the Demand Better campaign, which is a big campaign run by several groups, and they've got quite a bit of advertising funding and everything. And they're focusing not so much on reproductive rights, but they're focusing on childcare, I think it was, and um, a couple of other issues. But they're focusing on the economy, right? How the reproductive rights, gender equality, are essential for a powerful economy, and people sometimes don't seem to get that, right? They separate the two, but they're really connected. So it's really important that, I mean, our toolkit has a great place, but there's other toolkits as well that you can support. And we'll have a page, I think, in the guide that Carolyn just showed you that will list a few of those that you can link to.
Thanks, Joyce. Yeah, I think there was a related question in the chat about, do we have any suggestions on how to communicate that abortion rights and abortion access is in the best interest of Canada's economic development? They say, I think if the Conservative Party is the largest threat to reproductive rights and they claim to be the fiscally responsible party, whether that's true or not, how do we speak to traditional conservatives to educate them that abortion is critical to Canada's economic success?
Tough question. I was hoping somebody else will speak up. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can even question whether conservatives are that if you can talk to them about it, but if they're anti-abortion, they're going to have a kind of a mental block about that, right? But I think if you can show that, you know, even just having gender equality, so women and gender diverse people can access employment and have a job, obviously that helps the economy. But their employment prospects can be hurt if they're like being forced to have a baby that they don't want or whatever. So there's all those issues. And I think there's a lot of connections that can be made between reproductive rights and the economy. And you may not see them so much in our toolkit at the moment, but look at the Demand Better campaign. And there's also been a lot of work done in the US on linking reproductive rights with the economy. So the evidence base is there, and it's kind of, I mean, to me, the issue seems so obvious, but we have to make it obvious to the opposition as well. And so maybe the election toolkit committee can talk about that and figure out how we can implement that or mention that in our toolkit, because it is really important. And there might be if we can refer even to Demand Better, if they have something about reproductive rights and the economy, that would be very important as well. So yeah, rely on the network. We have a whole network of allied groups that is really important to ARC and to everyone. And so we'd like to give a shout out to other groups as well, and hoping that they're going to give us a shout out as well. So don't be afraid to use all the toolkits. Thanks.
Great. See if any other questions come in, but I'm also going to just share our thank you slide, basically because it has a lot of self-plug stuff in there, so you can follow us on our social media, and it's also good for the people who might be watching this later to have links to our toolkit and to donate or become an ARC member. But yeah, thank you everyone for being here today. It was a pleasure to go through the toolkit with you, and yeah, definitely keep visiting the website because we'll keep on updating this as the election draws near. Thanks, everybody.